Well, all right, Norm, you won fair and square. I don't even know what they are. They're CNETs.
Edgar Hansen used to be a familiar face on Deadliest Catch because he was known for his steady hand, calm nature, and long years aboard the Northwestern. For more than 10 years, fans watched him face the dangers of the Bering Sea together with his brother, Captain Sig Hansen. But after his sudden disappearance from the show, questions about what happened to him began to grow. Edgar Hansen finally spoke out at 64, confirming what many feared. Who is Edgar Hansen? To those just joining us, let's tell you in brief who Edgar Hansen is. Edgar Hansen is one of the fishermen from the popular reality show Deadliest Catch. He worked on the Northwestern, one of the leading crab boats featured on the series. On board the boat, he has served as the deck boss and chief engineer while managing the deck crew and keeping the boat's systems running during the long and dangerous crab seasons in the Bering Sea. He was born into a family with deep fishing roots, and his older brother, Sig Hansen, is the captain of the Northwestern. Together, the two brothers have carried on the family tradition of Norwegian fishermen who made a living from the sea. Edgar learned the trade at a young age and quickly proved himself to handle life's physical and mental challenges at sea. On Deadliest Catch, Edgar earned a reputation for his calm approach to approaching both sensitive and insensitive matters, strong work ethic, and dry sense of humor. He wasn't always at the center of the drama on board the boat, but he played a key role in keeping the crew together and the ship running smoothly. Viewers have noted liking him because they saw him as real, a man who worked hard, complained little, and stayed loyal to his crew and family. Even with the fame from being on television, Edgar remained grounded because he had noted how he prefers to focus on the work rather than the attention. Over the years, he became one of the most respected crew members on the show, and many fans came to see him as the steady heart of the Northwestern. Background and early days. Edgar Hansen was born in Seattle, Washington on the 14th of January, 1971. He was the youngest of three brothers born to their father, Sverre Hansen, a respected fisherman with Norwegian roots. The Hansen family lived near the docks, and because of his family's history, Edgar's world from a young age revolved around boats, engines, and stories from the sea. His father, Sverre, was known for his strong work ethic and discipline, because he believed that every man in the family should learn the value of hard work. And for the Hansens, that meant fishing. Their Norwegian background also helped shape their lifestyle with values like honesty, teamwork, and loyalty, which were important in their home. Fishing wasn't just a job for the family. It was a tradition passed down from generation to generation. Growing up in Ballard, a neighborhood in Seattle well known for its large Norwegian-American community, Edgar was surrounded by people who lived from the ocean. So for kids and anyone from that neighborhood, it was common to see boats lined up at the docks or men preparing nets, and families sharing stories about life in Alaska's cold waters. Edgar attended local schools in Seattle, but much of his education came from his hands-on experience with his father and brothers. He noted that he began helping around the family boat as a boy, handling simple tasks like cleaning, organizing tools, and assisting with repairs. But as he grew older, he began learning the technical side of fishing, how to handle machinery, fix engines, and prepare crab pots. His older brother, Sig Hansen, had already started fishing seriously by the time Edgar reached his teenage years. During an interview, Edgar noted that watching Sig command respect on deck made him follow in his footsteps. Their middle brother, Norman Hansen, was also involved in the trade, but often took on roles that required mechanical skill and patience, which were qualities Edgar naturally shared. By his mid-teenage years, Edgar had already spent more time on boats than most adults, which was how he learned to handle rough weather, read the sea, and understand the dangers of crab fishing. The long hours, freezing temperatures, and unpredictable waves became part of his everyday life. Learning the ropes and finding his place at sea.
I've earned the right to run the boat. You know, it's an...
As Edgar Hansen grew older, his connection to the ocean increased because by the time he was in his teenage years, Edgar was already spending long hours helping his father and brothers prepare gear, fix machinery, and maintain the family's fishing vessels. Those early years of his life taught him discipline because fishing in the Bering Sea was not a job where you could take shortcuts. Every rope, every pot, and every knot mattered, as even a simple mistake could cost time, money, or even lives. Edgar learned quickly to respect the sea and its risks. His calmness under pressure made him stand out among younger workers. When his older brother, Sig Hansen, began taking command roles on the family's boat, Edgar naturally followed in his footsteps. The brothers shared the same drive and duty to continue their father's legacy. Edgar started working more regularly on the Northwestern, the family's crab fishing boat, where he was trusted with key responsibilities on deck. Because Northwestern operated in one of the harshest fishing environments on Earth, the Bering Sea, Edgar quickly learned what real endurance meant there. He has recounted how he spent countless hours on deck in freezing temperatures, handling heavy crab pots, and navigating dangerous waters covered in ice. The work was exhausting, but Edgar proved dependable and skilled in handling it. As the years went by, he became known for his technical knowledge because he could repair engines, troubleshoot problems, and handle machinery efficiently. These skills later earned him the role of chief engineer and deck boss on Northwestern. His leadership style was simple but effective. He preferred to lead by example, working with the rest of the crew instead of giving orders from a distance. By his late 20s, Edgar was no longer just the younger brother following Sig's lead on the Northwestern. Instead, he had earned respect for himself, and crew members described him as straightforward, hard-working, and the type of man who rarely complained, even during the most challenging stretches at sea. His reliability and experience made him one of the main reasons Northwestern remained one of the most successful boats in the show's fleet. These years also defined Edgar's professional life because they built the foundation for the recognition and respect he received on television. However, it was still about the work in his early life stages, joining the Northwestern crew and the rise to fame. By the time Edgar Hansen officially joined Northwestern, he was already clearly stepping into more than just a fishing job. More like he was joining a family operation that had already been built on years of hard work and discipline. The boat had been part of the Hansen family for decades, as it was passed down through different generations of fishermen who made their living in the dangerous waters of Alaska. At first, Edgar took on the same tough duties as every other crew member, working long shifts on deck, hauling crab pots, sorting the catch, and keeping the gear in shape through endless hours of freezing wind and rough seas. Those who worked alongside him quickly noticed his calm attitude and steady hands, even when the weather turned harsh. By the time he officially joined, the Northwestern was captained by his older brother Sig Hansen, who entrusted Edgar with managing the deck and ensuring everything ran smoothly. That kind of trust is not something that gets handed out easily because it has to be earned, and Edgar proved himself through consistency and focus. He was always ready to step up, whether it was engine trouble, tangled lines, or a tired crew. His technical ability also made him different from other crew members because, as the boat's engineer, Edgar was the one everyone looked up to when it came to fixing problems with broken things in the middle of the fishing season. In crab fishing, things often break. So you see that his mix of mechanical knowledge and physical endurance made him an essential part of Northwestern's success. This is also why, when the Discovery Channel introduced Deadliest Catch in 2005, the Hansen brothers and their boat got a worldwide audience. Suddenly, the long and risky work of Alaskan crab fishing became something millions of viewers followed each week. Edgar did his job diligently, wasn't trying to impress anyone, and that honesty made it easy for those who valued men like him to like him as they watched from their homes. Through the seasons, fans began to see Edgar as the reliable balance to Sig's high energy and determination. He often brought humor to tense situations, but knew when to get serious. His leadership and calm presence became part of what made Northwestern one of the most successful and respected boats in the fleet. The show changed Edgar's life in many ways, like giving him worldwide recognition and a fan base that admired his hard work, but it also added pressure. The Hansen Brotherhood. The Hansen brothers built their lives around the same calling, fishing, because for them it wasn't just a career choice, but the family's lifeline and tradition. Their father, Sverre Hansen, taught them early that success on the water depended on teamwork, patience, and trust. Sig, the oldest, was the boat's captain with a strong will, which allowed him to stay focused and determined to keep the ship among the best in the fleet. Norman, the middle brother, was the quiet engineer who often worked behind the scenes to keep things running. Edgar, the youngest of the three, brought a mix of both personalities. He had Sig's work ethic and leadership instincts and shared Norman's calm and technical mindset. The bond between the brothers was strong, but it was not always easy, as it was always tested because life at sea comes with long hours, short tempers, and high stress. The pressure of running a boat that kept millions of viewers glued to their screens every week added even more strain. Still, despite the arguments or tired moments, the brothers shared a deep respect for one another, and this might just be because they understood that no one else could honestly know what their job demanded. Over the years, fans of Deadliest Catch have taken to social media platforms to express how they got to see the relationship of the Hansen brothers play out on screen. The Hansens didn't try to hide their differences. They argued, laughed, and worked through challenges like any real family would. Crewmen have noted how Sig Hansen often relied on Edgar's judgment when things got tough, knowing his brother could stay calm and make smart decisions even in chaos. Each of them knew what the other could handle, and that kind of trust only came from having a lifetime of shared experience. The Hansen brothers became more than just a family name on the show. Fans have noted how they now see them as symbols of the hard-working fishing families who risk their lives every season to make a living from the sea. Edgar's role in that brotherhood was vital, not because he was the loudest or the most visible, but because he was dependable, with a steady presence that kept the crew and his brothers grounded through the most challenging times, the cost of chasing crabs.
All the interviews. No, it's probably when we stack the gear on.
Working on the Bering Sea is punishing, but every crab season, Edgar Hansen and his crew faced freezing waves, rough winds, and constant danger to make a living. The work demanded long hours with little rest, even though the cold could numb a man's hands within minutes, and one wrong step could mean going overboard. Years of crab fishing take a serious toll on the body, and Edgar, just like everyone else, can testify to the back pain, joint aches, and exhaustion that build up over time. These built up because sleep was short, food was basic, and stress was constant. Even when cameras weren't rolling, the crew had to stay alert around heavy machinery and slippery decks. Fishing in the Bering Sea wasn't a job you could coast through because it tested your strength, patience, and sanity. Beyond the physical strain of fishing in the Bering Sea, there was also the emotional cost. Being away from home for months meant missing birthdays, family events, and even major milestones that happened in the family. Edgar often spoke about how the sea took a considerable part of every fisherman. The endless waiting, the danger, and the distance from loved ones change a person. He was proud of his work but understood that it came with sacrifices. As Deadliest Catch gained popularity, fans saw more glory than the grind. They only saw how the big catches and dramatic rescues made good television, but behind each scene was a lifetime of fatigue and fear. Edgar once hinted on set that no fame could make up for what the job demanded. It was dangerous money, and every crew member knew that one bad season could change everything. Over time, the pressure caught up with him. The physical injuries and stress piled up, and so did the mental fatigue that came with it. But just like many fishermen, Edgar pushed through because it wasn't easy for him to step back or show weakness, since he came from a line of men who believed in doing the work no matter what. The cost of chasing crabs wasn't just measured in dollars or catches, but in years of pain, lost time, and unspoken emotions. For Edgar, those years shaped him, but they also slowly wore him down. Edgar's family life. Whenever he was away from the freezing waves and long fishing seasons, Edgar Hansen lived a quiet life centered on family. He is married to Louise Hansen, his longtime partner, and has been with him through the hardest and best years of his career. Unlike Edgar, Louise preferred to stay out of the spotlight, which meant she rarely appeared on television, focusing instead on their home and raising their children. The couple has 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter, namely Stephanie Hansen, Logan Hansen, and Eric Hansen. Edgar has always spoken proudly of his family, saying they were the main reason he worked as hard as he did. Edgar has often noted that the months he spent at sea were difficult for him because of the physical demands and the time he had to spend away from his family. Missing birthdays, holidays, and even school events came with the job, and it was something he quietly struggled with. While Deadliest Catch showed the excitement and drama of crab fishing, it didn't show what came after, like the exhaustion, the readjusting to home life, and the guilt that often came from being gone for so long. Edgar once mentioned in an interview that the most challenging part of fishing wasn't the danger or the weather, but being separated from the people he loved. At home, he was known to be humble and reserved. He has noted that he prefers simple routines at home like family dinners or helping to fix things around the house. For all the fame he gained from Deadliest Catch, Edgar never acted like a celebrity. To his family and close friends, he was just a husband and a dad, not the man fans saw on television. His family stood by him through the highs and lows of his career because they could see the toll that decades of fishing had taken on him physically and emotionally. Yet, even through difficult moments, they remained his foundation. Signs something wasn't right. As the seasons of Deadliest Catch continued, viewers began to notice that something was changing about Edgar Hansen, and this was because he had been one of the most dependable and hard-working deck bosses on the Northwestern and the show at large. But his presence on the show started to decrease in the later seasons. He appeared less often, spoke less, and seemed physically drained compared to the earlier years. It wasn't hard for people who followed the show closely to tell that Edgar was no longer the same energetic man they had watched for over a decade. Crewmen noted that he moved more slowly whenever he was on deck, and seemed to struggle with the same strength and balance that once came easily. This might have been because his body had taken years of strain from long fishing trips, harsh weather, and endless labor, as crab fishing is known to be one of the most challenging jobs in the world, and Edgar had been doing it since he was young. Crew members also noticed that his usual sense of humor had drastically reduced. He had always been calm, but now he looked tired, and this was not just from lack of sleep, but from years of pushing himself too hard. Fans began asking questions online, wondering if something was wrong, or if he was considering leaving the show. Although it was unknown at the time behind the scenes, Edgar was dealing with both physical and personal struggles. His body was worn out from decades at the Bering Sea, and his family life was under growing pressure because of how much time he spent away. The balance that once kept him steady was slipping. By the time he appeared less frequently on Deadliest Catch, many people had already sensed his career on the show might end. It was not sudden like most celebrities of his caliber because the signs had been there for a while. What had once been passion and drive was replaced with tiredness alongside slow but steady withdrawal. For fans who had watched him for so many years, it was clear that something wasn't right. The scandal that changed everything. In the year 2018, news broke that shocked many fans of Deadliest Catch about Edgar Hansen. Edgar Hansen had been involved in a legal case that forced him out of the spotlight. According to official court records, Edgar pleaded guilty to a charge of fourth-degree sexual assault involving a minor. The case was handled in Snohomish County, Washington. As part of his plea deal, Edgar admitted to touching a 16-year-old girl without consent in the year 2017. The incident occurred months earlier but became public when the charges were filed. He received a suspended sentence, which means he did not serve jail time, but he was required to undergo treatment and pay court fines. When the news came to light, it spread quickly through both the media and the fan community because the story caused a significant reaction, as Edgar had always been seen as one of the calmer, more reliable figures on the show. The producers of Deadliest Catch and the Discovery Channel did not issue a detailed statement, but his absence from later seasons made it clear that the network had decided to move forward without him. The legal issue changed everything about Edgar's career and public image, moving him from being a familiar and trusted face on television to someone with a damaged reputation. Many fans expressed their disappointment online and noted how they struggled to reconcile the man they had watched for years with the reality of what had happened. Following the court case, Edgar avoided interviews and public appearances. He kept a low profile, focusing on his family and personal life while staying out of the media. The scandal ended his time on Deadliest Catch and closed the chapter of his public life. It was a turning point in his life that made it clear Edgar Hansen would not be returning to the show that had made him famous. A life lived quietly since. Edgar Hansen stepped away from public life after the court case in the year 2018. He began this private journey by not returning to Deadliest Catch and making no public statements about his departure from the show. For a man who had spent more than a decade on television, the silence was noticeable but expected. Edgar remained in Washington state, where the Hansen family continued their long tradition in commercial fishing. His brother Sig continued leading the Northwestern while Edgar stayed out of view, choosing to focus more on personal matters and family life. Reports from industry insiders suggested he still helped with maintenance work and other fishing-related business tasks. However, no official information confirmed whether he still went out to sea. In the years that followed the court incident, Edgar avoided interviews, public events, and media attention. His social media accounts stayed inactive, with no significant updates about his activities. Friends and acquaintances described him as keeping to himself, preferring a quiet and private life after everything that had happened. Edgar, in his later years, noted that living away from cameras allowed him to regain some sense of normalcy because he had spent much of his adult life working in extreme conditions, surrounded by cameras and pressure. Now, for the first time, he had time to slow down, and it was no thanks to the scandal. Those who knew him personally said he focused on rebuilding trust with his family and maintaining a simpler, more grounded lifestyle. While some fans noted having hope that he would return to the show, it never happened. Discovery Channel and the production team never mentioned his name again, keeping a distance from the controversy. Edgar's absence from the show became permanent, marking the end of an era for Northwestern and the fans who had followed the Hansen brothers from the start. By all indications, Edgar Hansen chose peace over publicity because he stayed quiet, worked out of the spotlight, and accepted a smaller private life after years of public attention. At 64, Edgar Hansen finally breaks his silence. After long years of silence, Edgar Hansen finally spoke out in an interview with a local channel, confirming much of what fans had long suspected. At 64, the former deck boss addressed his legal troubles and departure from Deadliest Catch in a brief but direct interview shared through a local Washington outlet. He acknowledged that the past had been difficult for him and his family and took full responsibility for his actions. Edgar also admitted that the legal issue surfaced in 2018 changed everything for him, and he was talking about his career and personal life. He further explained that after entering a guilty plea that year, he had to focus on rebuilding his family's trust and finding a sense of purpose outside of television. Edgar clarified that stepping away from Deadliest Catch was not entirely by choice, but partly due to the agreement he made at the time of his legal case. He also revealed that it took him years to recover emotionally from the public backlash that followed his case. According to him, the attention was overwhelming, and being under constant judgment from fans and the media made it hard to move forward. When asked about life after leaving the show, Edgar simply said he now lives quietly with his family in Washington and works occasionally within the fishing industry. Still, there were no longer captains or appearances on camera this time. He said he does not blame the network for cutting ties, adding that the decision was understandable given the circumstances. He expressed gratitude to fans who continued supporting him over the years, but admitted that he understood why others felt disappointed or angry. Edgar stated that his primary focus is maintaining peace, spending time with his family, and living responsibly. While the interview did not include any grand statements or promises of a comeback to the show, it marked the first time Edgar Hansen publicly addressed his situation in more than 6 years. His tone was calm, direct, and reflective, showing a man who had quietly accepted his past and moved on. Fans' reactions to his confession. When Edgar Hansen finally broke his silence, fans' reactions were mixed. For many longtime viewers of Deadliest Catch, hearing from him after more than 6 years felt like closure. Some fans expressed sympathy for him, saying they could see the weight he carried and appreciated that he took responsibility for his mistakes. Others, however, felt disappointed that his actions had caused such a sudden and permanent change to a show they loved. Online discussions across various platforms, such as Reddit and Facebook, showed how divided the fan base had become. Many viewers argued that everyone makes mistakes and believed Edgar deserved a second chance, especially after decades of hard work in dangerous conditions at sea. They pointed out that he had already paid a legal price and should be allowed to live quietly. On the other hand, some fans felt that the interview was too short and failed to dig deep enough into the difficult questions surrounding Edgar Hansen's past. While many appreciated his willingness to finally speak publicly after years of silence, others were disappointed that he didn't directly address the victim involved in his legal case, or offer a more personal reflection on what he had learned from the experience. To them, the interview seemed cautious, measured in tone but lacking in full accountability. They wanted to hear more than just acknowledgement. They wanted a moment of vulnerability, an honest reckoning that might help bring closure to one of the most controversial chapters in Deadliest Catch history. At the same time, the network's role in his absence became another talking point among longtime fans. Many questioned why the Discovery Channel never allowed Edgar to return to Deadliest Catch, not even for a brief one-time appearance to update viewers or offer a farewell to the fleet. Some felt that the decision was overly harsh, arguing that people deserve second chances and that Edgar's skills as a fisherman and his years of dedication to the Northwestern were being unfairly erased. For these fans, the show lost a key piece of its original heart when Edgar disappeared from the screen without a proper goodbye. However, others believed Discovery made the right call in keeping him off the series. They argued that the network was responsible for protecting its image and upholding a standard of integrity, especially given the serious nature of the legal case. To them, allowing Edgar back on television without a complete public reckoning would have sent the wrong message to viewers and cast members alike. In their view, it was an uncomfortable but necessary decision that placed accountability above nostalgia. Regardless of which side fans took, Edgar's decision to speak publicly again reopened a floodgate of memories about the earlier seasons of Deadliest Catch. Viewers were reminded of the show's gritty authenticity, the high-stakes dangers of crab fishing, and the camaraderie among the Northwestern crew that had once made them a fan favorite. His presence had always carried a mix of toughness and humor, and his absence left a noticeable void in the show's dynamic. Over time, as fans debated, reflected, and rewatched old episodes, it became clear that Edgar Hansen's legacy on Deadliest Catch was complicated but undeniable. Whether or not they chose to forgive him, everyone could agree that his story had left a deep imprint on the series and the people who worked beside him through years of rough seas, personal struggles, and televised triumphs. His return to the public eye didn't rewrite history. Still, it reminded viewers that behind every reality show, personality is a real human being, flawed, imperfect, and forever changed by their choices. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. And before you go, make sure to click on the video on your screen.